Being a founder is not just going on podcasts. It's not just trying to get 100 gazillion followers and whatever your social network is. It's not about, posting a quote every day from Sunset Sue or something. It's about literally trying to get stuff done.
What do you look at when you review a team?
Yeah, right. So as part of the RMA audit, team proficiency is a really important factor that we'll go over. Now, what we do is we look at what the product or service is that an organization is providing. And for this section, we address who are the primary people responsible for delivering that end to end. And we want to make sure that they make sense to be in these roles. So a traditional KYC, which is what some people might do, they really just check if people could pass a credit check. Don't get me wrong, that's important, or they're not perhaps being politically exposed people, very important. But it doesn't go into the background of people. It doesn't go into whether they make sense to be on this team for what they're trying to deliver. So we'll go back through someone's past experience, where they've been, what they've achieved, what they've learned, and we're looking for that narrative to add up for the role that they're currently in. Now, look, some people do have side hustles and side gigs as well. So it could be quite possible that someone has a job or a career, and now they've switched. And for us on the surface, it may not make sense. But underneath, they've been doing a lot of side projects and things like that, which can get us across the line. So I'll give you an example, right? So someone whose previous job was manager at, let's say, a Starbucks for a really long time, they're not ready to be CTO of a company without any kind of coding experience or something in there, and probably a lot of coding experience to be a CTO. But someone who's manager of a Starbucks, has been for a number of years in a startup, is part of a team that works with a great CTO with a proper background in tech, and works with someone who has a great background in sales, they might be ready to be, say, in an operations role or overseeing a customer service team or something like that. So yeah, look, to sum it up, we look to make sure the team makes sense for the product or service they provide.
Perfect, thank you. And yeah, you mentioned more traditionals or more formal ways of verifying people's identity, etc. What does traditional due diligence get wrong about team analysis?
My big thing about traditional due diligence, and it's funny we should say it, is it's all digital. And so what that means is they're looking for scalability in terms of how they're assessing people. So if everyone's done a KYC check before, which in our industry, if you're watching this, I presume you're in crypto and you probably have for an exchange somewhere, that's a repeatable process where you show an ID, you show your face, you do a liveness check, and there you are. A lot of companies, that might be the due diligence they require in a team. And that doesn't determine who that person is or their background or what they've been able to achieve in the past, which is what I think traditional due diligence gets wrong. I'm not saying at all that those things are not important. And like in our corporate products, we do offer KYC on the people as well. But what we do more is we're asking the questions, why are these the right people to be part of this team to get the job done?
Okay, and can you tell us more about what's the range covered by VaaSBlock when it gets to team analysis? And more importantly, what do you wish you could cover more?
Yeah, so look, I think like when we do the team analysis, we're looking to answer two questions and find the justification for these two questions. One, who are the people? And why are they the right people to get the job done? And so we look at leader positions, potentially we look at founders positions, directors positions, we potentially look at advisors if they're playing a key role to help fill gaps. We're looking to understand how it works today, right? Second thing we're looking at is what's the plan to scale up in the very hopeful circumstances where things goes well for the business. And I would like to plug the RMA a little bit here if I can, Raf, because companies that do have the RMA do seem to be considerably more successful than other Web3 companies. I think the last stat we looked at, you're 5 times more likely to, an RMA company is 5 times more likely to make it into year 3 than anything else. But I think the numbers were trending up there. But so going on to that, what's the hiring plan? So if you've got a dev position, you have a couple of 2 full stack devs that are hustling, it's year 1 or 2 of your product, but suddenly you're going to onboard another 100,000 users. And by users, I mean people who are going to use the application on a regular basis. How are you going to split up those teams? How are you going to manage splitting up those teams? What sort of people are you going to bring in? Are you going to handle that with an agency or an external factor? Are you going to handle that with full-time roles? Similarly, on the sales sides of things, how are you going to handle an expansion into other regions? Perhaps you're a services company. We're looking for an explanation for that and a plan for that as well too. Not just the dream, we're looking for the plan behind that vision.
You mentioned in the past interview, that most crises, most issues with the Web3 project were due to poorly assembled teams, more than security breaches. Can you maybe explain why?
Oh, so I'm going to take the question in two parts. I'm going to give you what I think the facts are, and then I'm going to give you my sort of opinion on those facts. How's that? So the facts simply are, starting a business or having an idea is easy. And there's a lot of people out there that have some very exciting ideas. They're passionate about these ideas. And in Web3, getting capital is relatively simple. They're able to have a successful raise through a token or something like that. The problem is, ideas are easy. It's the execution that becomes very, very difficult. And very, very quickly, we discover that these people can't turn a vision, can't turn a dream into something that is practical to sell. It could be that it actually wasn't necessarily such a good idea. So one question that I wish more founders ask themselves is, if no one's done this before, why not? Right, that can sort of answer it. Or they haven't done proper competitive analysis, or they haven't even worked out that what they're trying to do is actually impossible. So there's many reasons of things that go wrong, and it is generally driven by poor teams. Operationally, they can do things wrong too, like pay the wrong salaries, overcharge people, not manage a runway, hire the wrong positions, hire friends, try to hire maybe even experienced people to bring things in who have a great track record, but then rather than listening to them, they want to micromanage them, or so basically not use their people really well. So the human element internally is a far bigger reason why companies fail. And fundamentally, why do they end up failing? They run out of money, right? That's why they run out of money, and they do this very, very, very quickly. Now, my opinion of it, as to why this happens, is I think a lot of people want to play a founder, almost like they want to be actors. They want to think it's a fun job. You get to go to podcasts, you get to go do interviews, you're going to drive some fancy car, have this fancy life. And the reality is being a founder or starting a company or whatever you want to call it is one of the hardest things in the world. I won't say it's the hardest thing, but one of the hardest things in the world. And making it successful is very, 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 very hard. You're constantly consumed with the very likely chance that your business is going to fail, and then you've got to deal with what that's going to be like for yourself. You've got to deal with how are you going to pay people next week. You got to deal with really, really tough criticism from customers, and that's if you're brave enough to go out there and ask a customer and be told that your product sucks, or I don't know who this is for, or why do you think that's a good idea. It's very, very hard to hear those things on a daily basis and get up. So yeah, I think there's a mismatch between what people think starting a business is and what actually running a business is. And I think the ease of equity and the ease of getting money in crypto makes it a bigger problem than maybe it is in, say, ag tech or meditech or another industry at the moment.
That makes sense, yeah. You mentioned that a good or a bad team could have a big impact on projects. What is the impact of a good or a bad team on a project?
Oh, like a bad team is fundamentally a team that isn't right for the product or service that they're delivering that day. So I'll give you an example. Maybe hiring really experienced people is not what you should be doing in the early days. Really experienced people who have really long careers, if they don't touch on startup, are not going to be good at early days of being in the company. Right? They're not going to be good at the early hustle, the early need to go out and talk to customers and deal with some of that rejection I just gave in the previous answer. right? They're not going to be necessarily great. So just because someone has a lot of experience doesn't mean it's going to be the right experience for the role that's going on. But look, the most common thing I've seen with bad teams is an over concentration on one of two sides. So a lot of founders will think you just want to spend time building a product, and if you build it, it will come. And in this case, I consider a product to be an app. I consider a product to be even the social media account of a company, or a web page or a blog or something. People are just spending all this effort building it, and all their resources and roles are focused on this, and nothing is focused on sales. Sometimes I see the other side where there's too much focus on sales and not enough on product. But my general recommendation is your focus should be more on the sales side of things, because that's where you're getting your feedback from people as you grow. So let's say it's an early company. That would be something that I would be looking at, or would be questioning, or would sort of be saying, where are you seeing these people? And moreover, when we've seen companies fail, most likely it's the scenario where too much time and money was spent on building something that no one wanted, or building marketing assets and stories that no one wanted without any feedback. So bad teams do that sort of stuff, right? Bad teams don't ship to market. Bad teams build things that don't get adopted, and then they run out of money. Now, on the flip side, a good team works together, and when you start to see the results coming in, you're not exactly sure who is responsible, right? Everything's working really well. It's like an incredible sports team or a football team that's able to get the ball from defense through the midfield and up to their striker and hopefully score. The whole team has to do it. The whole team, even if they don't have the ball, is potentially distracting the other side. They're still playing a part, even if they're not immediately responsible for the ball or the action that's being taken. So when I see a great team, that's what I see. I see everyone's really competent. I see everyone is really aware of what their roles are in the business. I see everyone who is really aligned to a vision. And that vision doesn't necessarily need to come from the CEO or the founders. It could be collected collectively. It may come from someone else. But yeah, in short, there's alignment, there's engagement. Everyone's pushing in the same direction, and everyone seems aligned to a commercial goal. And fundamentally, the commercial goal is universal. It's putting money in the bank. It's making more money than your company is spending on producing products or operating the day-to-day.